So let me take you back to the beginning of the IPCC. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was established in the UN by figures such as Maurice Strong. At the very beginning of that organisation, if you look into their official papers, there is a statement of what they're about. What is their purpose? What are they trying to do? And it becomes very apparent that they're only interested in looking for the human causation behind the climate. And consequently, all the funding for any research into climate was then only channeled towards anybody who is looking for a human component. Now that tells you something. Is it truly scientific? It poses as scientific and it amasses huge amounts of science, but at its root, it is a political organisation. And let's just for a moment examine their process. Now their process is quite good, but there's a fundamental flaw to it, which exposes this whole issue of whether it's reliable or not. And that is this. They've divvied up the science of climate change. And so you've got a section dealing with sea level rise, a section dealing with polar bears, another one for glaciers, another one for the North Pole, etc., etc. And so these genuine top-class scientists in these different fields are called upon to produce their papers on their particular area of expertise. And then those papers are all looked at, and then they try to summarize them to get a sort of feel for what's happening in that area. But as usual, as you'd expect with good scientists who are looking into the future, they're going to suggest a range of options. But now in the IPCC process, before it goes to print, there's a summary that is prepared for policymakers. And that's the bit that goes out. That's the bit that is communicated to the press and the press comment on. And this is done not by the scientists. This is done by an overlay of, I'm going to call them, global warming activists. They are not the true scientists who prepared the papers. And they cherry pick the more extreme response. Now, historically, what does that lead to? Some of these scientists throw up their hands in horror and say, that's not what I said. And some of them have resigned in protest because the final statement did not represent the truth about the science. Now, I know that the IPCC has been forced to improve. And over the years, they are improving. And over the years, they are taking into account divergence of views. And they're also taking into account the degree of probability. But it's still, at the end of the day, a political statement.
Subscribe and click the notification bell to receive updates about new content. Visit tomorrowsworld.org for more articles, telecasts, and booklets.